This new Honda HR-V looks pretty snazzy, especially in this crystal red colour, doesn't it? It looks good, but after a week of driving this with my family, including 2 family road trips, looks could be deceiving. Now, it's not all bad news. It does have some redeeming qualities and frankly some features that are surprising for an SUV of this size. Stay watching to find out why. Like other brands, Honda has pared back its HR-V models to just 2 and beefed up the accessories on both. The VIX is the cheapest available at the moment and will cost you just under $37,000 drive away. Now, it is a little bit more expensive than the base models of its nearest rivals, the Toyota CHR and Kia Seltos, but it does enjoy lower servicing costs for the first 5 years. The HR-V also enjoys some nice features, like the 18-inch alloy wheels, LED lights, dark tinted rear glass, and magic back seats. But I'll go into more details about those later. I reckon Honda got it right with the shape of this car. It's fresh looking, and the refined pinching at the rear is pretty sexy. The nose does look a little bit boxier than what it is because the grille shares the same color as the body paneling, but overall it's a sleek little SUV. Now, it's pretty clever because it also manages to look substantial enough to warrant the SUV tag, with the sloped back and chunky body paneling over its large wheels. And the slim and pointed lights make it look meaner than what it is. The interior doesn't quite carry the sexy aesthetic from the outside, but the dash isn't too plain looking. I really like the vent system, but the harder plastics and cloth seats do take away from some of the fun. It's still nice looking in here though. I really like the sense of space you get in this car, and that I don't feel like I'm on top of any of my passengers. The dash, it is what it is. It's not bad looking, it's quite solid and looks practical, and I really like how easy the controls are to access and to navigate. Nothing's too confusing in here, which is nice. The seats are relatively comfortable because of how padded they are, but you don't have a lot of under thigh support, and they definitely not electric. And you're going to notice the lack of the lumbar support on a longer trip. But overall, they're okay. I always prefer something a bit hardier when kids are around, but the fabric, has a nice texture and color, so it's not too bad. The storage up front is pretty good. The glove box and middle console are average, but there are also 2 cup holders and 2 handy cubbies in front of the gear shifter, and 2 well-placed USB-A ports. The 9-inch touchscreen multimedia system has been really easy to use. I like that even on this grade, it has wireless Apple CarPlay and wired Android Auto. It's been easy to connect my iPhone 8 Plus to it, which is always a bonus, but it also has built-in sat-nav, which is, I always like having on a car because it means that you can mute the directions but still have them playing on screen and have your music going, and your music's not dipping in and out every time a direction's sounding, which I always like. The 7-inch digital instrument panel isn't super customizable, but is very easy to read. And I like that you can bring up the map directions on it, even through your iPhone directions, which is good. And it has traffic sign recognition on it too. I actually like the retro traditional gear shifter. It feels good in your hands, and I like that the electric parking brake is located in the same place. I really like how generous the head and legroom is back here. As an adult passenger, I feel very comfortable. However, this has only been designed to seat 4, which is going to limit its appeal to some families. The width of the seat also means that even if you did have that 5th seat belt, there's not much you can do with it. So it's going to lose points for some, but for a small family, you're not going to notice it as much. I like that the armrest has built-in cup holders, but it's too low to be truly comfortable. And because you have to sort of lean into it, if you're next to someone who wants to use it too, you're going to rub shoulders with them. Although, because it is narrow, if you do have 2 child seats locked in back here, you can keep it down, and it means that, your kids have easy access to a cup holder they can actually reach. The lower profile height of the car meant that it was easy for my 5-year-old to jump in and out of, which was great. And he was actually able to reach the sneaky door handles and the C-pillar, which he liked. Because the window sills sit a little bit lower on this, he actually got a decent view this week too, which was nice. The door apertures are narrow, something to consider because you can very easily bump your head when you get in and out. Something to consider when you're tall and you have to buckle in your kids every day. The amenities could be better back here. You only have the one map pocket, but you do have 2 cubbies here, which are unusual and means that, backseat passengers can store some stuff too. I also like, though, that the cup holders are on the door and actually easily accessible. However, there are no reading lights, no directional air vents, or USB ports back here, which is a real shame. The back seats are dubbed magic seats by Honda, and they are pretty darn cool. You can lift them up to create a huge storage space between the boot and front seats, say if you need taller clearance for bigger items, or lay them flat. The difference though with the lay flat option is that the base of the seat slides forward to make the cargo area even longer, which is great for gear stowage. This is 2 ISOFIX mounts and 2 top tether child seat mounts. And honestly, it was very easy to fit my harness booster seat and a 0 to 4 rearward facing child seat. And one of the biggest features in this car is how much internal space each occupant gets. So even with 2 child seats installed, both front passengers get plenty of space. The boot is small for this class of SUV and smaller than the previous generation. However, it's large enough to fit some items in there, but if you're using both back seats for kids and you have the relative gear for the kids, it might not be big enough. The plus though is that the lower height of the car means that it's easy to load things in and out, and I do like that the cargo blinds lifts up and away when you open the lid, because it means that it's easier to store stuff too. And although this grade doesn't have power tailgate, the lid isn't heavy, so it's not too hard to operate. Honda's description for this car is joyful in every sense of the word. But after driving it, joy is not the word I would use. Compared to its rivals, its engine is underpowered and non-turbocharged. It bitches and complains every time you have to put your foot down. To give you an example of how underpowered it is, I managed to redline the revs going from a 50 to 100k zone just on a highway merge. I wasn't super impressed with the safety systems either. And just a little footnote, this didn't happen every single time I drove it, but occasionally you'd get the forward collision alert just popping up on the dash when, as far as I could tell, there was nothing that would warrant it coming up at all. Same deal with the lane departure warning. It would shake the steering wheel, again, nowhere near the line markings, but still popping up. The adaptive cruise control though was very good and managed to keep a consistent speed, which I thought was impressive given that one of my roadies this week was on the Blue Mountains. The suspension is pretty forgiving and smooths out most of the road's bumps as I'm going over the bumps. Very handy. But I have to say, the cabin is so loud. Competing for first place is the engine, wind, and road noise. You don't have to yell or anything, but I did notice that I had to repeat myself quite a lot for my son this week, which annoyed both of us. And after a longer trip, you get out of the car and your senses kind of feel battered. There's no blind spot monitoring at all on this grade, but it is available on the hybrid version. I have to admit, I did miss it this week because I like having that system. It adds another layer of protection when I'm driving my family around. The steering is nice and direct and feels good, but I would have liked more responsiveness from this engine. And this design deserves a better engine. I hope Honda does a turbo or something with a bit more grunt. The compact size makes it easy to navigate even a tight car park. The reversing camera is clear, but the front and rear sensors can feel laggy. Sometimes you can almost be hitting an obstacle before they sound an alert. The official combined fuel cycle figure is 5.8 litres per 100 kilometres, and I achieved just shy of that at 5.9 litres per 100 kilometres. That's after some pretty heavy driving and aggressive driving to wring out as much as I could from the tiny engine. But overall, that performed pretty well. Expect the figure to be higher if you're in the city though. The HR-V comes with some good standard safety features like AEB, forward collision alert, lane keeping and departure aids, adaptive cruise control, and rear and front parking sensors. Now, all good on paper, but in practice, some of those systems can feel a bit laggy. It has the usual airbags, but unlike some newer cars on the market, it doesn't have a front center or driver's knee airbag. The newest generation HR-V doesn't have an NCAP safety rating, but it did score a 4-star rating on the Euro NCAP. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's unsafe, but it's worth considering. The HR-V comes with Honda's 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, which is standard for this class. But it does also come with 5 years roadside assistance, which is great for peace of mind. You can get 5 years cap price servicing, and services are $125, which is more affordable than most, if not all, other rivals. Servicing intervals are every 12 months or 10,000 kilometres, whichever occurs first. And if you put some heavy Ks in your car every year, you may end up paying more for servicing anyway. The Honda HR-V VIX is a good looking car, but there's going to be no serious heartbeats for a driver that actually enjoys driving. It's got some great practicality features like the magic seats in the back, and just the sheer space that each occupant gets is fantastic. I would have liked a gruntier engine because for me, this is only ever going to be an A to B sort of car. The interior is fuss-free, which means that the average driver is not going to get confused by it. So it earns a 6 out of 10 from me. My son really liked the hot rod red color, and he also gave it a 6 out of 10. If you're after more details, check out the full review at the CarsGuide site. The link will be in the description, and I'll see you next week.